This is Grapplers Talk.
What is up, fans of Grapplers Talk? This is Dave coming at you with another episode each and every week. Thank you to all the fans for downloading and tuning into the podcast. We really appreciate all your love and support out there, and everybody that listens and sends me messages about how they're enjoying the podcast and they love hearing the stories and hearing all about people's journeys. I really appreciate hearing the feedback, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, I could not do this thing without some help from my partners over at Butterfly X. They're always supplying us with the best rash guards, gis, belts, anything that you need for your academy. Hit them up. They're coming out with some awesome custom no-gi kits, some cool stuff on their website. So check them out. Use our promo code Grapplers Talk, and you will receive 10% off of your order over there. And yeah, go check them out. We really appreciate our friends over there. And I'm excited to have a guest on this week. I really consider a veteran in this game. I remember when I first started, I heard a lot of stories, and I got to do a little tournament back in the day. And he was a part of it. And truly appreciate having somebody on, a veteran of this game, none other than Shilo Bacca. Thank you again for being a part of this podcast, man. How you doing?
Hey, thanks a lot, Dave. I'm doing great. I'm just happy to be here to talk about jujitsu. I'm really excited that you asked me to come on and speak.
Yeah, we're really thrilled to talk to you this week, and I know the fans like hearing some crazy stories. But I want to find out how you got introduced into the sport of jujitsu or grappling. When did you start wrestling? If you wrestled, how did you get introduced into it, and why did you want to get into it?
Sure. Well, I'll start at the beginning, and some of it's not probably all that interesting. I did start wrestling back in junior high. Uh, I started wrestling because I came up not from a really affluent background, but I had played basketball in the seventh grade, and you had to take a physical to be able to play sports. And so, with that, right after the basketball season was wrestling. I had never seen anything in regards to wrestling outside of WWF, which of course now is WWE.
Yeah.
Um, so I had no concept of what it was, but my friends were doing it, and I already had a physical, so it wasn't going to cost any money to compete. I started. It wasn't all that good. I was already my full height. I was 6'2" in the seventh grade, but I was significantly underweight at the time. But by the end of my junior high, I was maybe 170 pounds. After junior high, went to high school. I transitioned to a private school. I had moved in with my father at that time, and I wasn't able to compete in wrestling anymore. And I didn't do any grappling for a long time after that. So that was my wrestling, kind of boring. Um, it gave me some ability to, talk the language. I knew things like what a Granby roll, and I knew what a single leg and a double leg, and these basic concepts. But when it came to grappling, I think it was really interesting, jujitsu specifically. Really, when I started, jujitsu was back in 1998, and back then, everyone that was in jujitsu was in it to be a fighter. And I say it was kind of like cops and robbers because you see there was a
Yeah.
distinct demographic. It was people that were more of the maybe criminal element and the law enforcement. This was very heavily represented
Yeah.
on both sides. And everyone had this idea that this was going to be how they're going to make money because they had seen the UFC. Now, at the time, I was a waiter. I had been kicked out of college. I'd come back, to my home area, and so I ended up working in Lodi, California. And I was working at a restaurant called Lions Restaurant, which interesting side story. This is where Nick and Nate Diaz, their mother, was
Yeah.
worked there. So I met
Yeah.
Nick and Nate when they were very young. Uh, I had a manager one night came in. It was a new assistant manager, and he said, "Hey, have you seen this UFC? Like you could kick people in the face, and it's crazy." I said, "I haven't seen it, but it looks super cool." And so he said, "I'll bring you a tape." So he brought a VHS tape the next day. I went and watched it. Um, I was super excited because It was UFC 1. It was Hoist Gracie versus Ken Shamrock. I immediately related to this Hoist Gracie because here's this guy that's 6 foot something, maybe a buck 80.
Yeah.
And this guy that looks like Mr. Olympia is the guy that he's going up against. And if you recall the match, it goes Hoist chokes Ken out. They both look at the referee because this was before Big John and before they even understood really what the rules were. And the referee
Yeah.
seems confused by the concept of tapping out. And Ken immediately starts to grapple again. And Hoist chokes him a second time. Ken taps, they stand up. And then the thing that impressed me was Hoist kind of got in Ken's face and was like saying, "You tapped out." And Ken was like, "Whoa, yeah, I did. We're
Yeah.
cool." And I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. So I wasn't really good with the geography of. So the next day I go back and I give the tape back. I say, "Hey, that was amazing." I didn't understand that Lockford, California was right next door to Lodi, California. And this
Right.
is just, the universe being the way it is. Uh, that very night, Ken Shamrock came into the restaurant with his family. And he was super nice, but I was just standing there next to this man that looked like just the the most perfect specimen of bodybuilder that I had seen at that young point in my life. And
Yeah.
I was thinking, a guy that looked like me, he beat this guy twice in a row and then was still bold enough to get in his face and let him know, "Hey, just so you know, I just beat you." And I thought, man, that jujitsu, that's got to be something. So I decided I would like to try this jujitsu. And how are you going to do that? I don't know. Well, as luck would have it, right? Um, it was within the next couple weeks. Eric Shingu came in. He came in with his wife and some of his students, and they would come in pretty regular. And they'd come in late at night, and it was them finishing up their martial arts training. And so I overheard them talking, and when they're talking, I heard things like armbar, and I was like, and guard, and I was like, oh, this is jujitsu. So I said, "Oh wow, do you guys do that jujitsu?" And Eric was like, "Yeah, no, we train with Half and Caesar. Um, I also have a school here in Lodi because it's a long trip. You should come check it out." So that's what I did. So I went and checked it out. I remember learning my first two submissions were Americana and rear naked choke, and I was pretty sure that that's all I would need forever. And it's I say some of the most entertaining times is when you got two guys that don't know anything other than they're gonna win, and they've got two submissions in their pocket. So it was always a great time. Um, Through the course of that, I started training with Eric. He also did Okinawan karate, Goju-Ryu,
Yeah.
and so I was doing that. And one day, this guy came in to train after the Goju-Ryu class, and he was going to do some grappling. That was Steve Heath. That was the first I'd met Steve Heath, and nicest guy ever, man. He
Yeah.
later I used to live and I don't know how familiar you are with Lodi. I used to live off of Ham Lane and Lodi Avenue. It
Hmm.
is right where the Crest Theater is, kind of.
Yeah.
And so I would walk from my apartment over to train, and then I'd walk when I was done. And so I hung around and got to roll a bit with Steve. And he saw me walking home, was like, "Hey, let me give you a ride." I remember he gave me a ride. I had just met this guy, and he was just like, "Yeah, yeah, it's a rough day for me. I got my girlfriend pregnant. I just found out." And I was like, "Wow, that's wild." And so we ended up becoming pretty great friends.
Yeah.
Uh, and so at some point, we were training. It's hard to get down to Caesars. We would travel down to Caesars very infrequently. I would. Steve would go all the time, but my schedule didn't really line up as well. Eventually, Steve got mats for his garage. And so we would just train in the garage, and you'd have guys coming through and train in the garage. It would be maybe 10, 15 guys in his garage. The Lodi Police Department would come by because the neighbors would call and complain about the cars. And like, "I think guys are fighting in the garage over here." And all respect to law enforcement, they were super cool. Every time they came, they're like, "Yeah, no, you're not doing anything wrong. Just the neighbors called. We had to come check it out."
That's good.
Uh, So you had a great mix. Steve started fighting about that time. We went to one of the earliest MMA matches that we went to was in Stockton, over off of East Main Street Gym, off of 8th Street, maybe.
Neil Amos's thing, right?
Yeah, Neil Amos's thing. That was
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
I
I've
remember,
heard some legendary stories about that one.
yeah.
Carlton has told us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, Carlton and yeah, Carlton Crosby. He was there. He fought that night. Carlton, I love because Carlton, always such an animated guy. They had, of course, it was an underground type thing, and this thing got oversold. There's just a mist of marijuana smoke in the air when you go in a fog. There's like one porta potty, and there's just hundreds of people. There's strippers that are the ring girls, and Carlton, they're like, he was like, I think he was a last minute. He was going to fight, and so they said, "Did you need to warm up?" He said, "Yeah, hold on." And he just jumps in and just starts dancing with one of the ring girls, and that was his warm up. So, uh,
That's awesome.
yeah. So we did that. I remember it was super interesting. The finals in that was Gil Castillo versus Vernon White. I remember Steve fought in that. He won his first match against a very tall guy who I don't remember his name. I don't think the guy ever went on to train much after that. But Steve had kicked him in the knee at some point, and he had injured his foot. So right after his first match, he pulled out. Um, um, we knew another fellow that was a local Goju-Ryu practitioner. Was his name was Rodney Hu.
Rodney.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rodney Hu, and he competed in, and he was one of Gil's first matches, if not his first match.
Yeah.
And it was a super quick match. I think Rodney did a step over punch. Gil shot right underneath it, took it back, choked him out, and that was it. I only tell that because I may have more story at my later. But that night, I remember I thought it was all going to go down crazy because here's Steve with a busted foot. We all ended up after the everything was over. Well, there was lots of interesting things that night.
Didn't a fight break out at the end or something
There were
along those
multiple
lines?
fights. So first,
Yeah.
Jerry Bolander had been the Jerry Bolander
Yeah.
UFC legend. He was the referee for most of the matches. When we got to the final match, uh, I think that was it Caesar that jumped in. I think Caesar jumped in as the referee. He said, "No, no, you can't do that. Like, it's biased." But then his cousin named Alex, something like this, was in the corner for Vernon. And Caesar didn't appreciate that. So right as soon as the match finished, he walked over and punched this guy in the face and broke out a little brawl at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, later we all ended up in the like a small room. There's a bunch of fighters back there and their team guys, and somebody said something and it pissed Vernon off. And so I thought there was gonna be another fight. So it was just a wild night. And I thought,
I
wow, this is
I now you were there. You may have a little bit more to this story, but I've heard on a different podcast before that guy that was cornering the other guy that Caesar punched was a Brazilian guy where he
mm-hmm.
was like talking in a Brazilian accent, and apparently he was faking his lineage or faking who he knew, or it
Oh,
was a fake accent or something along those lines. And the story I heard was Caesar said something to him in Portuguese, and then he responded, and it didn't line up, so Caesar punched him.
yeah.
I wasn't there. I've heard from a lot of different people. Dave Lowson was there.
Yeah.
I've talked to Steve about it. I've talked to
Yeah.
Carlton about it. I even know a friend of mine that ran the ticket booth that night and was taking
Yeah.
tickets for people. And there's some crazy stories that happened in this town with some legendary fighters. And
For sure.
yeah,
And it
you
was
got to
it
live it
was
firsthand. That's pretty cool.
and it was just wild. You realize like this is the thing everyone wants to do, and you go, wow, this was just like the tickets were all oversold or somebody made copies. You don't know how it went down, but there was just too many people getting fights. And to be honest, if anyone gave you more information on that guy getting punched, they probably knew more than me. I just remember they were like, I don't know, that dude was it was fucked up. Caesar didn't like him.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So I really felt like I was young at the time, and I thought, man, this is the life, right? You're just hanging out with your friends, getting into scraps. It's all super cool.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I think that everyone went to El Torito after that. And I think that may have been a bunch of people dined and dashed on that thing. And I was like, well, this is sketch, you know.
Uh,
So um, later with that night, Rodney Who, that was when he decided he was going to start training grappling. And that was, for me personally, it ended up being pivotal point in my life. He started training in the garage, come over to Steve's garage and train. And he said, "Hey, what are you doing with your life?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a waiter." And he was like, "Hey, come learn how to do mortgages with me. I got a place, they'll pay you." And it worked out pretty well. So that was a pretty great personal note for me. It was kind of a pivotal moment, moving away from just doing a job that probably wasn't ever going to pay me very well to something
right.
that I could make a living on. So
Yeah.
um, with that, we kind of floated around a lot. We ended up at one point, uh, the Lions Den had been in Lockford, but at that point, Ken had taken off for WWF, and Frank had just moved to San Jose to uh, work with AKA. And so that left Bob Shamrock, who was their adoptive father. He didn't have any fighters with him, or kind of a weird staple of fighters of who was left in town. And so he started a new thing called Shamrock 2000. It was with one of the
Mm.
guys I think that had come from the boys' home, Dave Cranny, and it was a gym that had a boxing ring and wrestling mats, and we had a whole bevy of fighters there. And so we got because at that point we were all no gi guys. We're gonna do jujitsu because we're gonna be pro fighters.
Yeah.
And here's Bob Shamrock, this guy that took Ken Shamrock and Frank Shamrock all the way to the professional level, and now he's looking out for us, scheduling us fights. It was him and it was Kevin Wu, I think, was in charge of running the Shamrock 2000. I think it was Shamrock 2000 International because it sounded cool with the. And at that time, I remember I was working a lot. I was kind of like more like Mad Enforcer doorman, like when new guys would show up and be like, oh well, Shilo can go with them and let's see how they do, and then we'll know if they're gonna train hard with the fighter guys because the legitimate fighters we had through strange, however it works out. We had Val Ignatov, who is amazing footlock guy, had two UFC appearances and just probably had the most unfortunate matchups in all of UFC history. He started off and his first match, I think, was Matt Hughes. And so that's a rough match to get for your debut in the UFC.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he fought against, and maybe you can help me with his name, the fellow that died in the desert. He fought Dave Terrell
Evan
also.
Tanner. Evan
Yeah,
Tanner.
Evan
Yes.
Tanner. Yeah. So he fought Evan Tanner was his second one, and that guy was savage. Um,
Yeah.
but regardless, Val was with us. Jens Pulver was with us because Jens Pulver had done the OG Lions Den tryout and went back home to Idaho, so he could take care of personal business, make some money, do something. Well, he showed back up, and there was no Lions Den, so he trained with us for a while. Um, I remember at one point we went to the India casinos where all the fights were because of legality. So we would go up
Yeah.
to Jackson, and I kind of fancied, even though I was working in an office, I would get in and fight. And I'm training with all these fighters. Went up to fight in Jackson, and Steve was fighting that night. And of course, he was on a tear. At that point, he had already developed his. He called it the Heath choke.
Heath
Now we call
choke.
it,
Yep.
yeah. Now we call it North South choke, and
Yeah.
Marcelo's more known for it, but I still think of it as the Heath choke.
Yeah.
Um, so he had won. There was another fellow that I was always competitive with. He was a Stockton PD guy named John Duncan, and he had trained at the original Lions Den, and he fought on that same card, and he fought a guy named Abraham Baxter out of Slow. So he's with Chuck Liddell and Scott Adams School.
Yeah.
He got knocked out real bad, real quick in that fight. And so later we were training, and I kept kind of hinting around that I'd like to do a fight sometime. And I, well, you're not really a fighter, but I mean, you're not a fighter, but you know, you're doing your office stuff. Who would we even set you up with? And I said, hey, uh, I'll fight that guy that knocked out John. I could take that guy. So sure enough, they were able to make that happen. There was a Mark Hall threw a big event down in Anza at the Kauai Casino back in 1999.
Wow.
Um, and it was basically all of slow guys versus whoever they could get to show up. So I was able to fight Abraham Baxter. At that point, my stand-up was pretty atrocious. I was 100% reliant on my jujitsu was going to win me my match. So my fight, I walked out and I threw these huge head kicks as we were starting out, just hoping that he would try and close the distance, uh, so that we wouldn't stand there and bang. And sure enough, he did close the distance. And then through whatever strange series or whatever, we ended up in like this Muay Thai clinch, and I was able to land it two solid knees right to the jaw, and he just dropped. Um, at that point, I was so excited, and I just wanted to I want to get the win right then and there because I could smell blood in the water. So I loaded up and I swung as hard as I could to punch this guy in the head, and he's sitting on all fours. He's already kind of loopy. I go to finish it with this big punch, and I completely miss. And I've never been so embarrassed in my life. Uh, and so immediately I grabbed him in guillotine while he's still on all fours, and I grab him by the neck, and then I just think to myself, I think I'm trying to pull guard because at this point, I've been training for a couple years, and
Yeah.
this is how I know to finish guillotine, get him into closed guard. So the effect of this, since I'm standing and he's on all fours and I'm trying to pull guard, is that I, in essence, whip him off the mat and DDT him into the mat. I win the match. I'm excited. Um, and that was my end of my career for when it comes to mixed martial arts. So I retired as a 1-0-0. I like to let people know undefeated, no holds barred fighter. I like to let people know that I mastered how to become an undefeated, no holds barred fighter. You have one fight. That's the hard part is win. After
And
that,
then
the
you
easy
stop
part is
there.
just stop. Yep. It's the Costanza, right? I'm out of here.
Yeah.
It was pretty great doing that event. Uh, Charlie Kohler was the headliner, OG Black Belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and I remember that his guy backed out, and I remember they called to the crowd for someone to come fight him, and I almost got to witness Jake Shields' debut into mixed martial arts because Jake Shields was the guy in the crowd who threw up his hand, and I remember,
That's
uh,
pretty crazy.
yeah, and so they were talking like, can we do this? And like Chuck Liddell was vouching for him. He was like, oh, I've seen this guy. He wrestles. He's good to go. And at the end, they ended up not doing it. And so I was like, oh man. So my one fight could have been also the debut of Jake Shields. Um, Trying to think if there was anybody else, just some local guys on the card. Back then, it was there was a Cruz Gomez was this big. He was always fighting up at Table Mountain, and he was winning, and he was on the card. Jim Cooley, who was a local guy
Yeah.
that did some pro wrestling, and he was on the card. So it's a pretty great event. Um,
Yeah.
um, Later, when it comes to crazy the Indian casino stories, I remember, I always thought it was awesome how you could be at a fight and they could just call people out of the crowd. We look at the very first one I go to, you got Carlton getting called out to come join in a
Yeah.
fight. Um, you got mine where this guy gets Jake Shields he jumps up out of the crowd and then it ends up getting squashed. We went to a fight in Calusa, King of the Cage, and Quentin Rampage Jackson was a headliner, and his guy fell out for whatever reason, and they called out to the crowd, and some unknown from the crowd volunteered. He was a big corn-fed guy, He ends up jumping in the ring wearing cut off jean shorts and just got the brakes beat off of him by Rampage. I remember it was an interesting story because going home, I mean, it's kind of remote. A lot of people end up at the same spot. I remember Rampage ended up at the same restaurant. It was a some fast food place, and it was Nick Diaz was there, young Nick Diaz with his girlfriend, and Nick. I don't even know if Nick had had any fights at that point. And Rampage is really crude at the time. He was young, and he said something about Nick's girlfriend, and everyone was really worked. We thought right then and there it was going to be a fight with Nick Diaz versus Rampage Jackson, and it ended up getting squashed. But I still always remember, wow,
Yeah.
to be in the middle of this. You go, it's kind of surreal when you see these people have gone on to be so big and famous in
Yeah.
their
It's pretty
careers.
wild.
So yeah. Um, I transitioned out of the mortgage. I went into law enforcement, where I still work today. I've been in law enforcement for 20 years now. Um, I had been training with Eric. Uh, Probably went back some point where I was training pretty regular about 2010, 2011. Maybe I started training with Eric more regularly. He had had a new school in Stockton.
Yeah.
Well, I should back it up. I'm
When
out
did
of order on some
let
stuff.
me let
I'm out
me
of
ask
order.
you, when did you end up at Fight Club, Stockton Fight Club?
And that's why I was out of order because I just realized. So
Yeah.
before I transitioned into law enforcement, um, there had been a fight, and I'd run into this cat named Justin Pfeiffer, and he had been doing local fights, and he had purchased a gym called Stockton Fight Club, and he was trying to have some boxing there, and he had some jujitsu. And he said, "Hey, you ever want to swing by? Swing by, drop in. Love to have you in." So I said, "Hey, that's cool." I went in. Super kind of him to ask me to come in. I came in, and he had a guy also named Justin, but I don't remember his last
Yeah.
name. And he was teaching this class. And I just remember being shocked. And I was like, "This is not good." But I didn't want to be rude, and so I didn't say anything. I just kind of observed the class. And then, as towards the end of class, he was like, "Hey, you want to jump in and catch a roller?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's roll." And so, made pretty short work of this guy, um, and uh, was all great. They were kind enough, but turned out Justin Pfeiffer had been getting ready to sell his gym. So there was a guy there named Marty Galindo, local plumber there in Stockton area. Super great guy, super great family. Um, he had wanted to own a boxing gym, and so he bought Stockton Fight Club, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to make this a boxing gym, but I can see there's a real uh, market for this uh, thing that you're doing with the wrestling around. So would you be interested in teaching for me?" So I became the head submission, so what do we call it? Submission grappling
Yeah.
instructor, right? Because I was
Yeah.
like, well, I mean, I said, I'm not going to call it jujitsu. I'm a blue belt in jujitsu. You know what I mean? What am
Yeah.
I going to do? So I said it'd be submission grappling, and it would just be in the rash guards and shorts. Um, and so did that for about a year, and that was where I got to meet a lot of great people that came through there. Um, Mike and Isaiah Valdez, who were training with Eric Shingu, they came over and would train
Yeah.
over there with the no gi. Rich Flores, this is where I met him, was at Stockton Fight Club. So a lot of great guys. Uh, I think Rocky Reyes,
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
kind of still active in the game. You see him at
Yeah.
a lot of submission grappling stuff or no gi stuff now we call it, right?
Right.
Um, Yeah, so did that, but I kind of let it go as I started my new career. And so Mike and Isaiah kind of took over at Stockton Fight Club. They were both they worked up to purple belt. I think they're purple belts and they were teaching there with Eric. I still kept in contact with everyone, but just starting a new job, I didn't train near as much. But in 2010, 2011, I came back and started training with Eric a whole lot more. I had promoted at work and started working in Rancho Cordova, Folsom area. And it was getting really hard to make training. And so I stopped in at Waza Jiu Jitsu in Elk Grove because it was right off the five. I knew Derek DeMano. Again, out of order on my stories, I had competed in the Capital City Grappling Open, and that turned out that Derek was throwing that. He's a Casio Warnick black belt. He had thrown that. Big names came through. I remember interesting was he had Mark Kerr show up as a special guest just to show up, and that was one of the big
Wow.
things they were hyping. Um, it was super interesting when we showed up. We were all not sure how it was going to go down. The California State Athletic Commission had showed up and told us that if anyone did any chokes, they would be charged with a crime because it wasn't sanctioned. So this is a grappling match where uh, there's no chokes. So it was an interesting uh, experience. Um, Also, again, I'm out of order with a lot of this stuff. This is all pre-Stockton Fight Club. There was a place called Club Fantasy in Sacramento. It was a strip club, and
Okay.
they had two different events there where they had grappling matches. And Steve Heath had grappled there. It was a boxing ring. Steve Heath competed against uh, Chuck Liddell in a grappling match here. I competed against a guy from Casio's named Al Williams, who super skilled guy, absolutely choked me to death. And I was embarrassed to be, I thought I was this young fighter, super cool guy. I'm like, man, here at the strip club, living the life. We're fighting and making a name for ourselves, and I lose in front of all my friends and my teammates to Sal Williams. But Al Williams goes on to be a black belt, super great guy. Um, Back then, the cross training was different. We had been training with a guy named Gus Enriquez. Um, he would have been part of the Animal House crew, and I remember at some point he goes, "Hey, you guys ever want to drop in and train?" And I remember Steve said, "Hey, let's go before we do this club fantasy. We'll train over there." It turns out Gus didn't tell us that he trained with Al Williams, so I showed up to train at the same school as the guy who was scheduled to fight, and I'm like, "This is kind of awkward." So,
Yeah.
um, other like 6 degrees of separation is there's old internet video of Nate doing a little slap boxing event at the Animal
Yeah.
House gym. There was
Right.
also an old one that I haven't seen pop up in a while, which was at the Great Bowl, which was young Nick doing a grappling match against
Yes.
Adrian Saldana, who's now a Casio black belt, and Gus Enriquez was the referee for it. So
Yeah.
everyone knew everybody back then. It was a small world. It was weird, and I really probably didn't understand at the time, though. I've come to understand now that Northern California kind of ended up being one of these like hubs of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it was
Yeah.
wild. So
Well, if you think about Northern California, like, I mean, we're close distance to the Bay Area, we're close distance to Southern California, and, NorCal is kind of like the hub, and Central California is like the hub, we got Sacramento, and everything kind of ties in at Stockton. So,
absolutely,
yeah, it's just an incredible, like, I mean, place to be from and have the kind of high caliber people like Caesar Gracie in the area, Ken Shamrock in the area, and all these names and fighters that went on through the UFC to make a huge name for themselves. Chuck was a regular on the circuits back then, and
right.
very well known and a California boy again.
Mm-hmm.
So, you think about it, a lot of the top guys around those generations with Ken Shamrock, Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, even from Huntington,
Right,
there was so many people from California. And then you think the Gracies located to California,
right,
just because they like the beaches and the surf and the like it
right.
was similar to Brazil. So,
Yeah. And I
um,
think you hit on something great there with this, like it's kind of like a point of convergence, I remember back Moses Moses bought the Ice House gym,
yeah,
and it was kind of like it was just like a whole bunch of guys bringing a whole lot of different experiences would show up there. So there was always somebody to learn something from. You didn't know where they learned it, but
Yeah.
everyone just came together and traded tricks and traded moves and we didn't have cool names for everything yet. So it was like here's an arm bar. Oh, what do you call that one? Arm bar. There, I mean, and then what's that one called? Arm bar. They're all arm
Yeah.
bar, man. I don't know.
Yeah, the with Moses at the ice house, that was real cool. I remember going in there with the Curlies. We would get really good sparring. And I mean, I just remember like you never knew, like Nick and Nathan would go in there sometimes, and Isaac De Jesus would go in there sometimes, and all these
Yeah.
legendary fighters and names would be in there, or guys that were just tough as shit, just getting in there
I
to
forgot
make a
Isaac De
name.
Jesus. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he also would come by Sock and Fight Club back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time, and back then it was really hard to find the arts, it was hard to find jujitsu, the internet wasn't what it is now,
We'd get
in
a
Google
VHS
listings.
and we'd pass it around and make copies of
Yeah.
copies. And nobody had mats at their place, so you'd be in your living room on the carpet trying to practice moves by yourself, so you could remember it to go back. And nobody
I
had a
re
cell phone with YouTube on it, so
Yeah, well, just the difficulty in finding gis. I remember it was kind of
right.
difficult to find the right jujitsu gis back then.
Man, when I first started, if you had a blue gi, that was because black gis didn't exist. They weren't a thing.
Y-
It was and a blue gi. Whoa, that's a fancy
Yeah.
gi. And I remember like the brands back then. You had Krugans, and you're like, you look back, and you're like, it looks like a burlap sack, man. Like
Yeah.
it's not fitted at all. It's
Right.
just terrible. But if you could find that, you were like, man, I really came up.
Yeah, yeah, it was very difficult. Now, when you were with Eric in like 2010 era, you were doing a lot of competition back then and moving through the ranks by competing and going out there and making a
Mhm.
name for yourself. Talk to me what the competition was like back then compared to how it is, say, modernized and today and in those similar types of competitions.
You bet. And I don't know if it's just my own personal, like now I understand the rule set to a better degree. I understand that jujitsu, sport jujitsu is a specific kind of, sect of jujitsu. And
Yeah.
it really revolves around the rule set and understanding the rule set and being able to maximize your ability to score advantage, and things like this, that they all make a big difference. Back then, it was you never pull guard. It's just guard pulling is frowned upon, a super, super beta type move, right? To use more
Yeah.
modern vernacular, it would be a beta move. Like, no, you're alpha, you're out there,
100%.
you're going to be on top. And so you just, two guys come out there, and nobody'd have any decent takedowns. So you're a couple of rhinos. You just grab a hold of each other, and
Yeah.
that's it. The whole match is going to be shake each other and who wants it more.
Yeah.
Didn't concern ourselves as much rules like reaping. It wasn't as big a thing. Now it's like this thing that's actual. There's tactics around what's reaping, can placing yourself in a reap, or did he place you in a reap? And back then it was just, can you twist this guy up in a way that make him want to quit?
Yeah.
And so you just again, I don't know if it's my personal experience or it's just the game how it evolved, but it was a lot more physical game back then. And the guys that you went against, they were just strong. Everyone was strong, and everyone had an idea they were going to be a fighter. So I think, man,
Yeah.
it kind of went, the physicality was a huge part of the sport. And so there was this idea, that's always a smaller, more skilled person can beat a stronger, less skilled opponent, but also just be bigger and stronger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, no one was trying to be the smaller guy. It's just like, no, I'd like to be the big guy that has a bunch of skills. So,
Oh yeah. I
um,
I I remember back I did Gracie Open back in '07, and I
mhm,
remember the fight game was real hot around then. And I remember Kit Cope. He was like the world Muay Thai champion, very tough
yeah,
guy. He showed up to do the Gracie Open. He had probably like 50 fights under his belt at that time.
yeah.
multiple world titles. He showed up, did the white belt division of the Gracie Open, and that's right
Right,
around the time he got with Nick and Nathan. And I just remember
right.
people going in there, and like you said, everyone was watching the fight game. Everyone wanted to be a fighter. And even though it was a jujitsu match where they probably could have won, they're so mesmerized by going against a crazy fighter like Kit Cope. And yeah, it was wild times, dude. It was a cool
Yeah,
generation to be a part of, and get to witness, and the growth throughout that. Now you see jujitsu, and it's completely changed. And you see the evolution of the sport. And talk to me about what you think about the evolution of jujitsu, the new types of matches that are out there, the quintets coming up, the adding the ramps and the walls. What's your kind of thoughts on all that?
absolutely. Absolutely. I'll get to that. But first, I'd like to see some other cool things about back then. It was just back then you'd go to a tournament, and the most important thing was to make sure you took plenty of snacks and a pillow and something to do because you didn't know if you were actually going to get a match, when you were going to get a match. It might be 9 o'clock that night before you get a match. Um, you better have your homies with you listening for your name because it was so disorganized. And then the crowd control wasn't like it is. Like now you'll see barriers and things, and there's guards at entrances to make sure only athletes and coaches go in one area. Back then, your guys, I remember I had one of the guys from Stockton Fight Club was competing, and during his finals match, it ended up the entire crowd had gotten onto the mat and was formed up in a circle, and it was like a schoolyard fight, and people are just yelling it the whole time, and it's this wild thing. Or I remember back at one of the first Gracie, it might have been Gracie Open 2. I remember it was Nick fought Macaco, and I was just like, wow, everyone's just right on the mat. Here's this
Yeah,
guy I had just seen him in the IBF. It was Valley Tudo fighting, and he ripped the
yeah.
guy's earring out. Now here's Nick fighting this guy. Nick catches a knee bar. I'm like, wow, this kid just tapped out a legend that I just saw on VHS. It's wild.
Yeah.
But going on to this evolution of how things are now, I enjoy a lot. You see, my favorite kind of rules, because there's different types of jujitsu you start to realize. Like there's sport jujitsu, self-defense jujitsu. There's jujitsu for law enforcement, right? My favorite kind of jujitsu right now, I think, is I saw this guy and he calls it local rules, just the in-gym rolls. And when you're at the gym, because there's no rule set when you're rolling with me, did you reap? Oh, was the Aoki actually a heel hook? Or you don't worry about these things, right? And if
Yeah.
it goes out of bounds and you have to reset, you don't jockey for position. You just slap hands and start up wherever you're starting up.
Yeah.
And at the end, you know who got the best of who. You don't have to have, and it's so you have a fun time. These are the best. But when you start playing within specific rule sets, one of the things with the traditional jujitsu was there is a bounds, right? And with MMA, this was a thing in the early days, right? When they had that like IBF where they had the netting underneath the bottom rope so that guys wouldn't come out of the ring.
Yeah.
Um, the UFC, of course, was started with the octagon cage. They had an extreme fighting championship, which had like a pony wall that and it was round. But then people would grab over it to gain mechanical advantage. Um, the out of bounds, breaking up the flow of the matches was never good. So for this, I love that they have the new ramps now because I've watched quite a few. I've seen it get real close to the lip, all the way up to the lip, but they never had to
Yeah.
stop the action because of it. It was always able to play off of it and continue on.
Right.
So I
Do you
like that.
sorry to interrupt, but do you
Not at
follow
all.
RAF?
I don't know if I do or if I don't. I'm
Okay.
terribly.
Real American freestyle wrestling. So
Mhm.
they're getting a lot of these top UFC fighters and names out there.
And Lovato Jr.'s fighting in this. Is that the thing?
I believe so, yes. And
Mhm.
they got guys like Yoel Ramiro and different guys, but Uriah Faber just did one, and the guy he was going against pushed him completely off the stage, where they both went flying about 10 feet off the stage. Now,
Mhm.
something like that would probably benefit a lot more with those ramps and maybe adopting something like that, so guys
Absolutely.
aren't going 10 feet off the stage and potentially getting injured in the match, right?
Yeah, because even if you have highlight fights where you've got a big platform, what's the limit for how big you make the platform and how big you make the actual competition area? Because you have to have some bounds, and eventually someone can get shoved off. It starts eating into space where spectators could be. It ends up pushing people farther away, can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
The bowl design, I think it's genius. So I've loved that they come along with that. I really like the bowl design. I don't really care for this UFC BJJ. Um,
How
I,
I feel the same, but I'm curious to see how come.
yeah, so
What's
a
your
couple
reason?
things. Yeah, so the first thing is 10-point must. I don't like the 10-point must for the UFC, and I know that's become the standard. I much preferred the Pride, where they'd have a 10-minute round and a 5-minute round, and then at the end, the judges just vote for the overall. They don't break it down by rounds. They just go who overall, and you think this is more aligned with like what you think of about a fight. There's a fight at the schoolyard. You don't go, well, I don't know, we're going to give the first 30 seconds to this guy. And then you
Yeah,
just, at the end of the whole thing, you go, oh, that guy got fucked up. There you go. Then we know who the winner was.
right.
So the 10-point must, I think, detracts the using the 5-minute rounds for the 10-point must. I get that you try and push the action, but also, jujitsu it's a different crowd now. You've got, all the internet memes with it's the autistic, the
Yeah,
nerds, and there's a lot of that. Um, as opposed to before, where it's just, cops and robbers type
yeah,
individuals. And with that, I think you're never going to have a sport that appeals to everyone. But I think that this isn't the 90s. You're not going to get a bunch of booing for stalling when you see people having high level grappling matches. You're going to get a lot of us grappling nerds who get real excited about watching two guys that are doing almost nothing, but it's super technical. And you're like, on the edge of
yeah,
your seat, waiting to see what happens.
right.
So I would like also the 5-minute rounds. It does favor just the more athletic you're going to get. And, you pointed out a great one back in the day. It was like Kit Copa comes in super athletic, super strong, super powerful. What's some white belt accountant that, been training 2, 3 days a week, and he's just on the verge of getting his blue belt. This might be that if he could win this tournament. And then here
Right.
comes this guy that just chews him up with nothing but raw aggression and athleticism. So, I think that the way the UFC is set up now is to try and make more audience friendly matches, but it doesn't end up doing that. You know what I mean? And you end up seeing that at the top level, a lot of guys, if they don't fight to win, not everyone fights to win. And fighting to win and fighting not to lose are two wildly different things. And you put me in a match with someone where I'm wildly underskilled in comparison, I can just default to I'm in here to not lose, and it's only 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes, I can not lose like you wouldn't believe,
Yeah.
But winning in 5 minutes is something else. It doesn't necessarily bring out the most exciting matches. Um, it also starts to bring in, more game theory stuff where it's like, well, okay, I'm up. I'm up. Let's conserve some energy so I can make it because I've already got this round in the bag. The odds that I'm going to sub this guy are low, but if I slow the action at this point, the odds are very high that I still have this round. And you go, see, that's the antithesis of what they were trying to do and make action.
Yeah.
So I don't like the 10-point must. I don't like the scoring that they do. I like that they mix up different belts because there is a level of athleticism. Once guys are, these top level guys, once they're purple belts, there's nothing saying he's not going to take a black belt out in a single
Right.
match on any given night. So I do enjoy that. Um, what else was there to talk about with the Craig Jones? I enjoyed his Craig Jones Invitational just because it's entertaining.
Yeah.
And you go, wow, you can just and the fact that you can just wow, we can watch this on YouTube. You can get all the homies and you know back in the early days of UFC. we all would get black boxes for our cable so that we could watch. And so even after that, it wasn't terribly expensive, but it's gotten to the point it's so expensive and they have so many fights. It's lost some of the luster. I think UFC fighting is not as enjoyable to me as it used to be. In the early days, it was you knew who everybody was, and
Yeah,
so you were looking, and everyone had a favorite and an opinion, and you knew when the next match was coming up, because the next event, because it was 3 months away, and you plan
right.
a party around it, and everyone would chip in or get a black box or do whatever you're doing. It was a great time, and now it's like is there a UFC this weekend? Well, every weekend there's a UFC of oh,
Yeah,
who's fighting? Some guys I've never heard of. Oh, are they
yeah,
good? They're all good. So, I
yeah.
mean, I don't know. It's a different world.
Yeah, it's definitely lost some of its luster for sure. But like even the Craig Jones Invitational, so let me ask you, so did you enjoy the second one with the quintet style over the way he did it the first time?
So I like the first time he did it. It's more classic, right? I like the quintet style. I really like that they were fluid and they were working on the fly. They realized some flaws with the design of the
Yeah,
layout, so they started throwing bonus money at people and switching
yeah,
it up and really incentivizing people to get what they wanted out. So I like that being, they they were a one-off event, so they weren't locked into a specific, this is how we have to do it. And so they made adjustments on the fly, and that kept it interesting. You're like, wow, I'm getting to watch this thing in its infancy. It's developing right in front of me. They just came
yeah,
up with this idea to drive people forward, and like you go, oh,
right.
this is super awesome. So I enjoyed it. I like the idea of it's wasn't a set format that everyone's so used to that people had already figured out the meta for it, right? Because there's a boring aspect to it, which is what's the most effective way to line up the brackets and address how the brackets worked out to maximize the chances that gets boring. You just want to see guys go out and have
Yeah,
great matches
yeah.
and so I liked that it was just fresh and it's working on the fly. They're solving problems and they're keeping it interesting. So
Yeah. It sounds like there's going to be another CJI or CJI 2.5, or I don't know what he's calling it, but some news dropped recently about that. That should be pretty interesting.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
he's always reinventing the game of jujitsu, and I think that's what's kind of missing in jujitsu. Like Craig is a character and a personality, but I think the more personalities you have, there's a reason people love that Daisy Fresh documentary, because it was just a
Sure.
crazy story about a realistic group of guys with some really unique personalities.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
and and for the growth of jujitsu, like I mean, those getting to know those people in this art and in this sport, and getting to highlight their personalities, highlight their stories, highlight their struggles and everything they've been through along the way, is really what's going to attract more people to jujitsu as a mainstream type of sport.
Absolutely. People love big personalities, right? And some people organically have big personalities. So I look at like Craig Jones or Chael Shonen, who
Yeah,
they just have these larger than life personalities. And you see that we live in like this social media kind of culture, and people try and optimize everything. So they'll see these guys with these big personalities, they'll break it apart, and then they come out and they ape the same thing. So you get a lot of mini me's, right? Conor McGregor was being Conor McGregor, and pretty soon you go, man, there's like throw a stick and you're gonna hit a Conor McGregor type fella, right? And you go, but
yeah,
he's missing that something. He's missing the authenticity. He was just like, oh, that's working for him and he's getting paid. So that's my thing now. Now I'm gonna be. Um, and so it's awesome that it's getting bigger, because the bigger the sport is, the more chance you have that you're going to get one of these great big personalities that comes out,
yeah,
and a lot of people can rally behind. I definitely think like UFC in the early days, I think when they came out with the Ultimate Fighter as a series, this was a brilliant move, right? Because like you
right.
felt like you knew these guys. And so I think the same to your point with this documentary, like when you see the behind the scenes, you're like, oh, there's more to this than just this 3 5 minute rounds of whatever. You know what I mean? You go,
Right.
it's, no, it's people living their lives. They've got dreams. Some are crazy wild, some are super intellectual.
Yeah.
You've got all different types of people from all different walks of life, and the only thing they share in common is that they love this one thing and they want to be good at it. They want to get the best at it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see how it's become. But I got a couple quick questions for you, Shiloh.
oh yeah, absolutely.
I gotta know, growing up, who was your favorite WWF or WWE character?
So my favorite WWF has got to be the Ultimate Warrior.
Okay.
When he comes out with his painted face and he grabs the ropes and just starts
The
shaking
ropes,
them.
yeah, you shake the ropes.
Yeah, yeah. And as a young kid, was living in Los Banos, California, smaller Central Valley town, and I remember the WWF came to the county fair, and the Ultimate Warrior came, and I was just like, "Whoa, this is it! It's real! Like, he's right here, right now." So, absolutely, it was the Ultimate Warrior. I remember he had some crazy, and I'm sure you can find on YouTube some crazy monologue where he's talking about the spaceship is coming, his
Yeah.
voice was just like gravel. It was that Macho Man type voice before Macho Man came out. Um, um, I think he overhead pressed Hulk Hogan at some point or something. I mean, I loved him as a kid. So
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
then, of course, it was kind of like the one of the prime times of WWF. You had there was a Saturday morning cartoon with Hulk Hogan and
Oh yeah.
friends. And it was like there was the baby faces were on one side and the heels were always on one side, and every week they get into trouble.
Do you remember the ice cream bars?
The WWF ice cream bars?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Oh man, they were so classic. When I was a kid, they had WWF ice cream bars, and I think you got a card on the inside if the ice cream didn't melt and run it.
That's
Like it
awesome.
was so cool. They had all the characters, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, all of them on there, and you never know which one you were gonna be able to buy at the store. Sometimes the Hulk Hogan ones got bought out quick, so it's always a treasure to see which WWF ice cream bar you're gonna get.
I think how crazy it is, like the cross marketing of things. I remember at the same time, Mr. T was a big deal, and he had a Saturday morning cartoon where he was the head coach for a U.S. gymnastics team. You go, how did who thought this up? But
Yeah.
it was a thing, and then he had Mr. T cereal. I remember, and it was all just like just like all the other sugar cereals, but it was all just little letter T, like alphabets, but they were all letter T.
Yeah. It's crazy, but yeah, those things sold like hotcakes, I'm sure. People were making money off that stuff. Back then, I remember just everything was so like new and exciting. You wanted to get it as a kid. So, how could your parents tell you no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, on the
Yeah.
on the topic of jujitsu and where it's going, I think it's interesting right now. You see a big resurgence of the no gi, and you see the nogi seems to almost have more mainstream appeal. And so I think some people think that that's going to just take over. Myself personally, I prefer the gi these days. As I get older, there's more problem solving to do when you introduce the gi because there's more techniques that are available to you. There's more submissions. There's ability to establish better control holds, things like this. So I'm interested to see how it develops because there's it ebbs and it flows. The no-gi will pick up in popularity, and I wonder now. It's ebbed and flowed in the past where the gi guys were viewed as more technical, but at this point, the no-gi guys have gotten so technical that it's wild. So you go,
Yeah.
will it ebb back the other way again? I don't know. Yes,
Yeah.
but
It's definitely it seems to be the one that people feel like is most marketable, but I feel like there's got to be something that can be done in the gi to make it marketable. Maybe the change of the rule set, change of the point structure, and get away
absolutely.
from the traditional mindset of gi jiu-jitsu that we know and love, and
Mhm.
establish a new style of doing it, right?
And I've seen a lot of guys with a lot of different ideas. A simple idea that I've had is, and this isn't a new idea at all, is number one, submission only, because that's what we're here for. We're here for the submissions. And it's nice
Yeah.
that you have the point system that kind of reinforces the jiu-jitsu paradigm, right? Of establish top control, pass the guard, establish a pin, finish with a submission. But ultimately, it's who can tap who, right? And so when you go submission only, the next thing I think, and a lot of things miss this, tournaments had been the way, and now super fights are becoming more and more common. So why is a draw not a thing? If we compete, regardless of if it looks like you were beating the brakes off of me the whole time, if we get to the end and no one's tapped, let's call it a draw because no one was able to tap anybody. So, now we say what you were the best loser.
Yeah.
Neither one of you could sub the other guy, but you did a much better job of not subbing that guy. I
Right.
think bring that back to say, hey, it's just draw. Everyone's so concerned about their records and wins, and no, just I don't need you to necessarily stay active. If you got something that doesn't look necessarily dynamic, but it guarantees it's a more guaranteed method for you to get the sub. Let's see you do that, whatever you got. And
Yeah.
I think when you know that you can't fake activity, right? Because at the when you're scoring when you're scoring an unsubbed sub only match, you're left with just who is more active, who's more aggressive, who had more submission. You can kind of fake that, right?
Yeah.
You feel like, hey, I'm on top. I just gotta kind of seem like I'm trying to finish at this point, and I win. You switch it and say, yeah, you can fake that all you want. If you don't tap this guy, cool story. You were on top and you both lost, or you
Right.
call it a draw, right?
Yeah.
So I think that could be more interesting. Because I think it causes a different mindset in the competitors. You know what I mean? It keeps both people like at the end, you're like, if you're on top, I mean, you're up, you're like, man, I did all this work. I'm on top. I'm up on everything. Let's hurry up and get the sub. And if you're on the losing end coming into the final stretch of the clock, it really drives home, man, I better pull something out. And you
Yeah.
just start Hail Marying it. Let's Hail Mary. Let's start
Right.
spamming that one thing I always get. Let's just throw that repeatedly and see what happens. So,
Yeah.
it's a super simple idea, but it's one thing I think that I'd like to see. And I haven't seen it, which is strange. It's not a revolutionary idea. We already have sub onlys is not an uncommon format, but you see so many of them, they're sub only and it's not tournament, it's just single event. Then why do you have to declare a winner,
Yeah.
right? Well, the criteria is wildly subjective. You go on, we think that this guy did better jiu-jitsu. I think neither one of them did that good at jiu-jitsu. Both of
Right.
them, I guess, defended submissions because neither one got sub, but nobody was able
Yeah.
to impose their will. I think one of the things with jiu-jitsu is it's who can impose their will on a fully resisting opponent while not allowing the opponent to impose their will upon them, right? It's
Yeah.
like the two things at once. So if nobody's subbing anybody, nobody's really imposing their will. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
when you showed up, you wanted to tap the guy. You didn't all of a sudden say, "No, I'm good with just being on top mostly."
Yeah. I've even heard of some sub only tournaments going off of like deep submission attempts or shallow submission attempts, and that's
Yeah,
kind of hard to define because you could really grab anything and kind of crank on it or
grab and crank
really.
it. And I think we've all been at this point. You've trained for a long time. Everyone's had a guy that like you go and you get him in rear naked and you realize, are your carotid arteries in a different place? And you go, well, it looked like you're choking him to death. But you go, hey, man, we're about 90 seconds into this and my arms are shot. That was nothing. And
Yeah.
so was that a deep attempt? Well, no, it never would have worked at all. So then it was an ineffective submission. So trying to like micro analyze on the fly, I don't think it drives uh, I don't think it drives activity. So I don't think it gets more audience, approval, or it's not more entertaining doing this, good submission attempt versus not a good. I think this is the problem with like advantage why sometimes it gets that was a near submission. Was it?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
What
was it
about
near
referee's
enough?
decision? That those always get kind of crazy, when it's
Always crazy, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
when it
Is it
comes
Shilo
down to
Bacca?
no
No, it's Shilo
advantage.
Baccheno. Baccheno. Yeah. It's anything for an edge, right? So
Yeah,
so um why a referee decision? And then like what makes him more qualified? Like if
right.
he was that qualified, why isn't he out here grappling and entertaining everybody if he's that qualified, man? So, and always people have their own preferences for different jujitsu styles, right? So the guy that played most to the style you favor, you're gonna have a bias towards him.
Right.
Um, at the end of the day, that's what's interesting is styles make fights, body types make fights, all these things. And if neither guy can beat either guy, you go, cool. Let's run it back again. Let's call it a draw. And if we want to find out, we can run it back again now that we've both seen each other's games a bit. Go back, train, and let's do it again. So,
Yeah. Make the
you know,
adjustments, right?
exactly. Make adjustments and see who can adjust better to the other guy's game. Like, so it's really just like a long running, like it's the long form instead of, round after round, you go, let's take a break. We'll come back in 3 months. We'll do it again. Right.
What's your take on the overtime status? Like, you see EVI and they'll go into a like a positional overtime. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, it's a great idea, and the overtimes are generally exciting, right? But again, it leaves it open for to be gamed, right? So you realize that I cannot be a complete jujitsu fighter. I can be an anti-jujitsu fighter, and I can specifically drill only spider web back control. I only drill spider web and back control, and for those two positions, I'm a monster. And other than that, I have really solid anti-jujitsu. Because you can become a solid anti-jujitsu player a lot faster than you can become a solid jujitsu player.
yeah.
And so there's potential for gaming still. I do like that the overtimes tend to be pretty action packed because it's real quick and we're already starting in a submission or a real favorable position. So I like that. One thing I think for like UFC, and it might be a good thing for just grappling style events too. I like the old Pride Grand Prix. Like instead of having like now where the UFC they're like who's number one ranked and two ranked, and you go, these are really arbitrary. How do they come up with these rankings? Who's coming up with these rankings?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, do the rankings really matter, or are they making matches based on what they think they can get revenue wise? Um, Instead of all that and trying to keep track of who's better than who, and there's one belt, every year start the year fresh and let's call next year the 2027 Grand Prix. And
Yeah.
the first event of the year, guys match off and that's the start of the brackets, and then you end up at the very end of the year that's going to be the final, and then you go, wow, we got to see these same guys kind of progress to a tournament, so we kept that cool finality tournament style, who's the best, and you're just the Grand Prix champion for that year. It's not necessarily a belt, but it's something you can do, and now it gives you time to really kind of get to know the fighter, right? Because you're seeing the same guy work his way through the bracket. So that's
Yeah.
something that works not only for like the UFC, but it could work for the grappling events that we have going on out there right now too. So
Yeah. What's your most favorite UFC fight of all time?
uh,
You had to boil it down to one.
yeah, if I were to boil it down to one, it comes down to that Hoist Gracie Ken Shamrock in UFC number one. You're just like, wow, he comes out and Hoist shoots right away. It goes to the ground. Ken falls back for a foot lock right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
Hoist comes up. He gets that choke from that side with kind of grapevine in, and I think
Yeah.
it's hard to see from the footage. Is he using his gi? Is that just his neck? And
Yeah.
then watching them both kind of look at the referee, and the referee's just kind of looking like, "What's going on, guys?" And so that's my favorite, I think, of all time. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, it's been awesome getting to, talk to you about the evolution of jujitsu. I know it's definitely got to be pretty cool being a part of it when you started to now and seeing the evolution and how it's changed and going from just a batch of silly knuckleheaded MMA fighters to now you see all walks of life training and competing in jujitsu and becoming really good at jujitsu. I saw
absolutely,
something
and
today on the news about a kid who was a surfer and he's quitting professional surfing to train jujitsu full time now. So
Yeah, it's amazing that it's a career option. Like, the reality is, the UFC was just coming into prominence when I was younger. There really wasn't an opportunity. Like, it was a one in a million shot. You look back at these early UFCs, you could fight three fights in one night and you would win $50,000. You go, wow, you got your ass kicked three times. Because even if you won, you got your ass kicked
yeah.
three times and you get $50,000. That was a big deal. And when you're young, you don't understand money the same. So you're like, wow, a whole $50,000. That totally sounds worth it. But
Very
now it's
true.
legitimate. You got people that can do it, and to see that grappling's getting to that point. It is interesting that with the social media world that we live in now, you see young kids that are starting to understand they can make a brand for themselves, and they're going out and they're saying, "Hey, I'm gonna be a jujitsu fighter, and I'm gonna develop a brand for myself and be able to make a living." Um, so it's super exciting. It's super exciting right now to see that there's kids that have grappled ever since they were children. And that was the big mystique of the Gracies, right? There was this big family that all trained from the time they were children. And now you go, no, we got people that train since they're children all over
Yeah.
the place, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so to see that the creativity hasn't stopped, right? We still like come back and talk to me in 6 months. There'll be a new hot move, and sure, you can only configure two bodies in any specific configuration in so many ways. Everything's already been invented, but there will be a new hot move. It's still creative, it's
Yeah.
so there's an art to the martial art. You know what I mean? It's there was a point where Berimbolo, oh, if you were Berimbolo, you were tearing the whole tournament circuit up now. Now that's like a staple. Like everyone understands if you don't understand Berimbolo, you at least have a
Yeah.
defense for it. You know,
Yeah.
um, there'll be a new hotness. You see these foot locks. Now it's like now you've got Mikey lock and Aoki lock, and wow, that didn't exist before. And you're like, well, I mean, it did. Then you're like, yeah, but now everybody knows it. You know what I mean? So it's super interesting.
Yeah.
So
It
excited to
definitely
see where
changes.
where it goes forward.
Yeah, it changes with everyone kind of knowing this information and being readily available, as back in the day where if you didn't have the VHS tapes or the books that were going around or the grappling magazines that were going around, like it was definitely harder to get the information and for it to travel,
You
right?
bet. Back then it was forums, right? Social media wasn't
Yeah.
the thing. And so you were on the underground forum talking with
Yep.
everybody on there, which I think it still exists today. But back then you'd see an ad for like the big book of submissions. And I remember somebody ordered one up, and so like they came through with it. It was literally one of these 3-inch 3-ring binders somebody had just made at Kinko's, and it was pictures of moves, and you just follow along, and you were like flower sweep, pendulum sweep. It was wild, right?
Yeah.
I remember just what do you even wear to fight? I remember when I had my one professional fight. Super cool. Um, this guy Sean was fighting out of Shamrock 2000 at the time, and he was like, "Hey, they got these cool shorts. They're called Tap Out." And he goes, "I'll hook you up. Let's get you some of those." And I was like, "Cool." I remember when I showed up, Charles Mask, he was there selling tap out gear out of the back of his big lifted truck. And he saw me with the shorts and he's like, right on. And I'm like, well, hook me up. And he's like, for sure. And he gives me a wife beater that said tap out on it. And I was like, man, I'm living the life. I just got sponsored right now. I got like a $10 wife beater on. But you look at these shorts, and these shorts were literally just like European swim trunks, is all they were. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
European swim trunks with tap out logo stuck on them. So
Yeah, pretty wild, man. That's got to be cool to see though, man. And yeah, it's incredible to think about like going full circle, like now and still being a part of jujitsu and out there coaching people. And I mean,
you bet.
obviously as a black belt, this, but jujitsu is a lifelong journey and you just never stop no matter what. You may take a quick break and have to do something, but you'll always find your way back to jujitsu no matter what.
Well, And a common saying, and the guys that train under me or train with me, they've heard me say this plenty of times. I go, here's the thing, jujitsu is tough. If you were to train regularly, in 10 years, you could have a black belt. Some people, like myself, are just naturally good at it. So I was able to do it in only 20, but you don't have to put that kind of pressure on yourself, right? And I say that to mean life happens, you know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
reality is you just keep showing up, and maybe you didn't show up as much as you wanted. Probably you didn't show up as much as you wanted, and you could have done more and you could have done better. If you keep showing up, it'll happen, and just keeping it as part of your life. That's it. If you don't lose, you can win. That's kind of a philosophy in jujitsu, right? And this is why I like this idea of draws, right? And you're going to say I'm a loser. This guy didn't tap me. Oh, well, he did way better than you in this arbitrary time limit that we set. And you go, well, if you make it a 3 minute match, the guy that came from collegiate wrestling is going to have a huge advantage. You make it a 20-minute straight through match, his
Yeah.
advantage starts to diminish and my advantage starts to come up, right? So what does it mean? I know though that if you can't beat me, I could win. So I like this idea of if we get to the end of regulation time, let's just call it what it is. Nobody won that, so it's a draw. So
Yeah. I like that thought. I think it's interesting. You kind of seen it in CJI after each quintet match. If nothing happened, they ended up disqualifying both of them, or they both,
right.
and I thought it added a lot more. I like that. I think that's a
Yeah.
good rule to have. But I don't know if the spectating crowd needs a winner or a loser. I don't know how it works in research and development or what that means, but
Hey, I say this, I don't know either. Maybe you run a peer group study and you can get these
yeah.
kind of statistics. But I'll tell you this, I went to public school and we had fights.
Yeah.
And we didn't need a referee to come out and announce who won, right? So, you go, hey, yeah, it's a draw. And you'd have different opinions, right? Like after the
Yeah.
fight, you'd be like, oh yeah, he whipped his ass. And like, no, he didn't whip his ass. No, no, it was the other way. Have it like that, right? Who won that
Yeah.
match? Oh, well, clearly, right? And no, no. And let's not have an official saying who won or lost. If nobody tapped, man. Do better. Get out there and learn how
Yeah.
to tap people.
Yeah. That's real interesting. Shiloh, it's been awesome getting to talk to you. I just for one gotta say thank you, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me and share your story and journey. And I have a good fan base of Stockton nerds that really enjoy hearing these crazy stories and hearing about these old fights and firsthand experience, man. It's really awesome. I know we've been around the same crowds for many years. We have a lot of the same friends and same contacts, but it's awesome to get to talk to you in long form and get to hear your story. I just always like to give my guests a couple minutes for any sort of shout outs, any sort of love towards any of their training partners or anything like that. But again, thank you for being a part of this episode. Just take a couple minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it. No, I appreciate you having me on, and I always enjoy getting to just sit and talk about jujitsu. It's nice when it's someone who's from the same circles, from the same area, because you can say things like, the East Main Street Gym, and you're like, yeah, Neil Amos, and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, everyone. There we go. We don't even have to go into a lot of detail necessarily, but we're already tracking where we're going with this story, right?
Yeah.
So thank you, just because it's great to get to talk to you. Um, I got to roll with you recently over at Stockton Jiu Jitsu, and then definitely a shout out to Stockton Jiu Jitsu. First of all, I've been over there a few times to train. Rich is always super great group of people over there. You were super great when I got to roll with you the other couple of weeks back there. So I appreciate you taking time to talk. I love having hard rolls, but I also like having good conversation about the rolls, and because this game of jujitsu, it never ends, and after rolls you learn more and more and more, and I don't think I'll ever stop learning stuff about jujitsu, and I learned that right there with the people that I train with. So when you have good training partners who can have good hard matches and then have good fun discussion about it afterwards, that's the best for me. Shout out to Waza and Derek. Derek Damano is who promoted me to black belt back in 2018. Shout out to Eric, right? I haven't seen Eric or talked to Eric, trained with Eric for quite some time, but he's the guy who gave me some place to train, right? When
Yeah.
I didn't even know what jiu-jitsu was. Um, to all the local schools, the I say the greater Stockton area, which greater Sacramento area, which I think includes Stockton. Uh, they're all so welcoming to me. I just it feels really great to know I can just show up at places and they will have me instruct, or they'll just let me train. They let me do what I want. When I show up, I train frequently up at Aries and Roseville, and Julio Valise and his guys, super great. Train up at Refuge in Cameron Park with Jeremiah and his guys, with Garrett over at Capitol, with Gibran over at Kaizen. Um, so I gotta say, I appreciate all of them because they've all been more than welcoming and let me come and train with them. Um, yeah, outside of that, my CRT brothers, the guys, the crisis response team from they have been so great. They come and are real receptive when I want to show defensive tactics for them. And they give hard rules no matter what. So appreciate everything that they've shown me and the love that they've shown me. Um, yeah. Uh, Outside that, there's my girlfriend who's Sarah Beth. If you guys have trained with her, she's at Waza often or at Aries. Also, she's a purple belt. I've known her since she was a white belt. It's super interesting to see someone that just comes into jiu-jitsu. She's only trained since maybe 2020, so maybe 6 years now. She's a purple belt, and to see her come from nothing and have a game that is so ridiculously similar to my game that other people, when she rolls them, go, "Wow, that's the thing that Shilo does. That's the series that he uses. That's how he does it." And they go, "Wow, there really is something to this thing. It's not just pulling random moves out of the back of your head and throwing them at the wall. There's a system to this, and different people have different strategies. And see people adapt your strategies is a really great compliment, I think. So,
Yeah. That's pretty incredible, man. Well, thank you, man. Always fans, don't forget to tune into each and every episode. We're available on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, anywhere where you can download and listen to podcasts. You can find Grapplers Talk. Once again, thank you to our partners over at Butterfly X. Go check them out. Use our promo code. You'll get some love over there. Also, like and follow them on Instagram. They got some awesome new rash guard kits out. Go check them out. The best quality rash guards, I tell you, like they're well made. I got all of my Academy rash guards made through Butterfly X because of how well everything's made. So hit them up. They do provide Academy rash guards, Academy gear, if that's what you're looking for. So hit them up and give them some love out there. Once again, Shilo, how do we find you on Instagram, or how do we get to roll with you?
you bet. So on Instagram, I'm BJJ Grind. You'll see it's a private account, but I'm pretty welcoming. So just request, and I'm sure there's a high likelihood that that's going to get accepted fairly quick. It's just BJJ Grind, all one word. I'm over at Waza in Elk Grove, so we're right off of the I-5 and Elk Grove Boulevard exit. If you're familiar at all with the area, it's the same shopping center as Oz. I'm there Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. 6:30 is our evening class. Always there. Friday mornings, I teach. Always the 6:30 class on Friday mornings. Thursday nights are no-gi night. You won't find me there. So that's the night that I take off. That's how I was able to make it to this discussion with you today.
Yeah.
Um, Fridays, I'm hit and miss, but I'm also there on the weekend. If you are in the area and you're just looking for a great open mat, Waza has open mat on Saturdays at 10 o'clock. You'll see a lot of no-gi guys at that one because it's back to back with our no-gi class. I usually go to the Sunday at 9 a.m. Again, gi and no gi both welcome, but it's just open mat. Generally, we have 2, 3 black belts, which is just amazing to me because if you saw a guy with a purple belt when I started, that was Jedi, right?
Yeah.
And now just on a Sunday morning, you can show up and there's going to be 3 black belts on the mat, and they're all just happy to roll with you, just talk with you, give you instruction, whatever you want. So absolutely come out to one of our classes, come out to our open mats. I'd love to see you all out there. And if you see me on the Instagram, you got a local place, throw me an invite. I'm happy to come out and train with you guys out there too.
Yeah. So fans, don't forget, download, tune into each and every week, new episodes out. Once again, this has been another amazing episode of Grapplers Talk. This is Dave, and we are out.
This is Grapplers Talk.